Second seed time, spring 825 week, location, Seagate port and river-walled city of the Duchy of Karsala. New Seagate clung to the coast like a barnacle to a hull, a town whose very breath smelled of salt, fish scales, and the faint, persistent odor of decay that seemed to cling particularly thickly to the old pier. It was seed time, the bright, demanding period when the soil grudgingly offered up its promise, and yet, here, beneath the high, white sun of the blossoming season, a shadow lingered. The air, usually thick with the scent of sun-warmed earth and the sweet perfume of the fruit orchards, was instead tainted by a cold, marine dread. Alderman Fitzwilliam, a man whose girth suggested a long, comfortable acquaintance with fine dining and short, brisk walks, wrung his hands until his knuckles shone like polished ivory. He had offered the 50 gold pieces, a sum that made a craftsman like Berwick Harpswell, currently polishing the brass rivets on a set of new seed sowers, raise a contemplative eyebrow, and the promise of pardons, a lure almost as potent as coin in a town where minor debts were often as common as loose floorboards. Berwick, meticulous by nature, valued precision above all things, and the sloppiness of these rumors irritated his organized soul. Strange noises, unnatural shapes, the kind of vague nonsense that spooked superstitious dockworkers but held no quantifiable data. Anya Meadowsweet, whose gentle nature usually made her the town's unofficial balm, looked drawn. She was busy at her small stall, offering the last of the slightly sweeter winter root vegetables, but her eyes kept drifting towards the sagging silhouette of the old pier. She whispered to Sarah Meadowlake, who was trading remedies near the newly repaired smithy, that old man Hemlock hadn't slept properly in a fortnight, claiming the keening was the sound of the sea claiming its due. Sarah, whose journeyman's skill in healing lent her an air of calm authority, merely adjusted the collection of glimmerseeds she planned to sell to the passing tinker caravan, noting the strained quality in Anya's voice. Willow Larkspur, meanwhile, was harder to pin down. She had been seen near the edge of the docks at dawn, not listening for ghosts, but examining the tide line with the focused intensity of someone identifying a rare spore. The burgeoning life of seed time, the vibrant blooms on the fruit trees, the communal effort in the fields, felt like a mocking counterpoint to the gloom settling over Oak Haven's waterfront. They were all, in their different ways, observing the approaching storm, waiting for the precise moment to apply their specific skills against the unquantifiable threat that tainted the profitable spring tides. Berwick, ever the pragmatist, approached the problem like a broken mechanism. He needed data. That meant talking to the relics. His first stop, 2 days into the investigation following Fitzwilliam's official pronouncement, was Old Man Hemlock, who inhabited a shack leaning precariously into the salt marsh. The early morning light of seed time was beginning to break, a clean, pale wash over the horizon, but Hemlock's shack was perpetually dim. Berwick, who possessed the patience of a master clockmaker when faced with a stubborn gear, sat on a crate outside. Hemlock, Berwick stated, his voice low, showing no hint of the impatience he truly felt, the alderman offers coin. I offer a careful eye. Tell me what you saw, not what you dreamt. Hemlock, a figure whittled down by decades of wind and brine, finally emerged, smelling faintly of old fish and cheaper spirits. He spoke of the scraping sound, not wood on wood, but something harder, like bone dragged over stone. Berwick took meticulous notes on a scrap of parchment, sketching the relative angles Hemlock described. That afternoon, the trio, Berwick, the meticulous craftsman, Anya, the quiet empath with her herbalist satchel, and Sarah, the shrewd apothecary, consulted Sister Agnes at the small, austere monastery carved into the limestone cliffs overlooking the harbour. The air inside the scriptorium was cool and still, a stark contrast to the bustling seed fairs happening miles inland where tinker caravans displayed their shining wares. Sister Agnes, her face a roadmap of piety, spoke not of ghosts, but of the sunken debt, an ancient tragedy involving the sea serpent's folly from 3 centuries past. The ritual, she breathed, her voice rustling like old vellum, the rite demands a sacrifice of artistry, not blood, to appease the captain's rage. She offered him a fragmented map section, salvaged from a monastic library, pointing toward the submerged wreck, an area usually avoided even by the hardiest divers. It was Willow Larkspur who provided the crucial link during the shared, meager meal that evening, a supper of salvaged winter potatoes and newly sprouted greens. Willow, chewing slowly, her eyes focused somewhere beyond the flickering campfire, mentioned that the unsettling keening matched the sound profile of certain deep-sea flora that bloomed only when exposed to rare mineral runoff that might be disturbed by recent seismic shifts near the wreck site. The shared meal cemented their reluctant alliance. Beric sought the mechanism, Sarah and Anya sought to heal the community's fear, and Willow sought the natural cause that lay beneath the superstition. Their investigation spanned the week, each day marked by the shifting quality of the spring sunlight. Day 3 saw Beric and Willow chartering a small, sturdy fishing skiff, pushing out just beyond the warning line the fishermen had established. The air was heavy, smelling strongly of blooming orchards carried miles on the gentle offshore breeze, a scent utterly incongruous with their task. Beric, using a finely calibrated depth sounder he had personally improved, a journeyman mechanician's touch, tracked the wreck site. The water, usually a relatively clear emerald near the coast, here turned a viscous, light-swallowing grey. Willow, utilizing her subtle command of nature, sensed vibrations in the hull, not merely the sea's natural movement, but rhythmic disturbances. "It is almost deliberate, Beric," she murmured, adjusting the thick wool shawl Anya had insisted she wear against the sudden chill rising from the depths. They couldn't dive without equipment, so Beric instead employed a mechanical grabber, a complex rig of levers and articulated claws he'd designed for delicate engine repair, lowering it to retrieve samples from the seabed near the jagged silhouette the sounder indicated. They recovered strange, oily black silt and several pieces of wood petrified by time, yet overlaid with a disturbing, pale phosphorescence. Meanwhile, Sarah and Anya visited Bartholomew, Barnacle Bart, Higgins, finding the salvage expert nestled in a notoriously disreputable tavern near the outer harbour walls. Bart, shrewd and smelling of cheap tobacco, initially scoffed. "Ghosts don't pay debts, girlies, salvage does." However, Sarah, utilizing her sharp judgment honed by managing the apothecary, didn't bargain in coin. She offered him a highly refined, rare medicinal poultice, a complex recipe involving glymaseed and preserved elderberry that promised relief from his chronic rheumatism. Intrigued by the quality of the concoction, Bart finally admitted that he'd been hired recently to move some heavy, oddly shaped iron plating near the pier, work he found distasteful because the noise started immediately after he finished. The plating, he admitted, was being moved by men wearing dark robes, who spoke in unsettling, repetitive chants that made his skin crawl. This confirmed the cult of the tide thread. Beric and Willow, returning late that evening, spread their findings on a rough table at their rented lodging. The silt matched Sister Agnes's description of materials used in ancient sea-binding rituals, and Bart's testimony pointed directly toward active cult activity amplifying whatever natural or cursed phenomenon was occurring. Their simple meal that night was tense, the promise of the burgeoning season momentarily forgotten in the face of deliberate, dark machinations beneath the waves. The timeline compressed swiftly as the full moon of seed time approached, drawing the cult's activities to a fever pitch. Beric, recognizing the cultists' need for a stable locus for their summoning, cross-referenced the map from Sister Agnes with Bart's description of where he moved the iron plating. The confluence pointed directly beneath the oldest, most rotten section of the pier, a section usually avoided even by rats. They decided upon action during the blossom phase of the season, just as the night air was thickest with the heavy, intoxicating scent of the fruit tree blossoms. This was their window. The cult would be distracted by the height of their ritual, and the scent would help mask their approach. They moved under the deep velvet of the night, the only light coming from the sliver of moon battling the heavy sea mist. Beric, carrying customized grappling hooks and a set of meticulously crafted clockwork distraction devices, took the lead. Anya and Sarah stayed back near the shore, ready to tend to any injuries and, crucially, to deploy Willow's specialized herbal smoke bombs, a potent mix designed not to harm, but to disrupt unnatural concentrations of energy. The confrontation beneath the pier was chaos distilled. The cultists, perhaps 10 strong, were chanting around a massive, barnacle-encrusted altar where they intended to place a pulsing, obsidian idol. The noises Beric had come to despise, the scraping and the gurgling, were now deafening, amplified by the wooden structure above. Beric didn't charge. That was the way of brutes. Instead, he activated 3 small, clockwork noisemakers, designed to mimic the sound of collapsing timber, setting them at staggered intervals. The sudden, sharp reports caused momentary panic among the robed figures. This was the opening. Willow, moving with a silent grace surprising for one usually tending delicate blooms, hurled several clay pots filled with her smoke mixture. The resulting cloud, a thick, sweetly pungent, strangely green haze, enveloped the central altar. Cultists shrieked, clutching at their eyes, their concentration shattered. Sarah, seeing a robed figure stumble near the water's edge, swiftly applied a precision-thrown net, a device Beric had quickly improvised, snaring him instantly. The leader, attempting to finish the invocation, roared in frustration. Beric, seeing the idol momentarily unguarded, didn't engage the man. He targeted the foundation. Using a specialized, heavy-duty chisel and a small, alchemically charged hammer, he struck the central piling nearest the altar, aiming not to destroy it, but to loosen the rusted iron plates Bart had been moving, plates that were clearly acting as the ritual's grounding rods. The resulting shudder caused the obsidian idol to slip from the cult leader's grasp, plummeting into the churning, noise-filled water below, immediately silencing the unnatural symphony. The aftermath settled with the tide, leaving behind only the smell of brine, spent sulfur from Willow's herbs, and the lingering metallic tang of fear. The sudden silence was more profound than any noise had been. The obsidian idol, claimed by the abyss, presumably returned whatever dark energy it held back into the deep, neutralizing the immediate threat posed by the cult of the tide. The surviving cultists, disoriented and robbed of their focus, scattered into the shadows, none wishing to face the returning wrath of the seasoned fishermen who were now cautiously approaching the pier, lanterns held high against the receding mist. Alderman Fitzwilliam arrived shortly after the dawn truly broke, painting the harbor in the soft, promising light of high seed time. He found Beric, meticulously collecting evidence, a few broken ceramic shards from the ritual pots, a length of unnaturally stiff rope, and the broken mechanism of one of his own distraction devices, which he examined with professional chagrin. He presented his findings to the alderman, not as a tale of vengeful ghosts, but as a clear case of dangerous, opportunistic fanatics undermining the town's commerce. The 50 gold pieces were paid, a transaction handled with Beric's usual precise accounting, ensuring he received his exact due. Anya and Sarah, tending to the few minor scrapes sustained, felt the communal tension ease almost visibly. The quiet strength they offered was suddenly validated by the return of calm. Willow, having spent the morning gathering samples of the disturbed flora near the tidal line, the bioluminescent parts of which were already fading in the strengthening spring sunlight, secured a rare specimen for her studies, seeing this event as a lesson in the toxic interactions between natural phenomena and human folly. The herds were already moving toward the higher pastures. The merchants' caravans were rolling past the town square with renewed vigor. The roads, bustling with the itinerant trade of the season, suggested Oakhaven was quickly reintegrating into the rhythm of spring's intensive labor. Beric, looking at the repaired pier pilings, which needed proper, structural work, a task he mentally logged for the coming weeks, felt a rare sense of satisfaction. It wasn't just functional, it was soundly secured against the unseen threats. The artistry of preparedness had won the day, allowing Oakhaven to once more focus on the vital, honest work of sowing and growth, leaving the whispers of the drowned pier to fade back into the deep.